Hey, and maybe Phil has successfully brought us into the broadcast to welcome everybody to episode 33 of the Map 5 podcast. And Big Hungry Phil, joined as per usual by Jeff and Ethan. And as not so usual today, as Billy unfortunately can't be with us, we've got Bailey stepping in to talk to us all things Calling All Heroes. Bailey, how's it going?
It's going good. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super stoked to be on.
It's great. Always a pleasure to have you on. And Jeff and Ethan, I guess, how are you guys as well? I care less, but
fine.
Good.
If you asked me yesterday, I would have said positive. If you asked me today, 50-50. I'm not sure yet.
Oh. As long as this doesn't devolve into therapy for you, then we're all hunky-dory.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure it's usually the opposite. I make it so that you gamers have to go and get therapy after an episode.
Yeah, that does unfortunately tend to happen for us. Regardless, we do have just a couple of brief news items to touch on here. And apologies for missing last week's episode. We did get a couple of questions like, hey, why wasn't there an episode? We are still kind of in production limbo, and I was on holiday last week. So it just kind of fell apart a little bit, which is a shame, but we'll find a way to make it up for you and move on from there. So, Ethan, I can't help but notice it's you that asked us to move the European Contenders recap up a notch. So why don't you run us through where we are with Contenders Europe at the minute?
Well, we're 6 games in, right? And not to be biased, but the first day of EU Contenders was really, really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, and then the other 2 were a little bit boring. I, of course, joke. It's actually been really exciting so far. We've got a really interesting relegation battle in EU Contenders so far. So I think that's what I'm going to highlight for the rest of this section, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
So I think next week we have 2 matches tomorrow on Tuesday for all the teams tomorrow, and then next week on Monday and Tuesday. So I think every team has got 5 games left. We're kind of halfway through the season when it comes to EU Contenders round robin. And I mean, the teams at the top are your standard ones: your Twisted Minds, your EXO, your SR Peak Check, your right. That's kind of done, right? The top 4 is kind of already done. The relegation battle, though, is really interesting. I feel like everyone else is in danger. From 5th down to 11th, I think it could be anyone that goes in that bottom 4. So it's going to be an interesting battle to watch. The teams to watch next week, then, for you: Pep, Ataraxia, Triple Esports, Exclamation Point Play, which I have recently joined, Share Code, Football Storm, and Raspberry Racers, who are sitting at 1 and 5 right now.
Yeah, rough start for Raspberry Racers. There are a couple of new teams here. You've said, of course, SR Peak Check on top. Where might people have seen SR Peak Check or seen players from SR Peak Check?
So Cloudy's a really loud guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this is Cloudy. Danid's team, I guess, are the most known players. Dalla as well is another notable player on this team. They play a lot of Brawl. Really good personality on this roster as well, and they've had some really good games so far. Really entertaining to watch. You can watch these games on LH Cloudy's stream if they weren't on the public broadcast.
Yep.
And I think they've had like 3-2 games. I'm just actually going to go back and check this now because I believe
I can bring that up on screen. I think. Oh no, it doesn't have the head-to-heads in this. Group stage matches. I can.
I can tell you in a moment.
They've had 3.
That
3 game 5s, and they've won 2 of those 3.
Yeah. Mental, to be honest. At this stage of the season, that means half of their games have been game 5s, right?
Wait till we get to NA.
True.
Holy crap.
Lots of game 5s over there as well. But I feel like the top 4 in EU is kind of a grade above the rest, to be fair. And I feel like that's the story that's kind of currently forming right now and probably going to form across the rest of the year as well. So that's another thing to watch out for.
So you mean within EU, not just like you suddenly think that these top 4 EU are like the top 4 in the world?
No, I mean within EU. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't let my Korean bias go. That'll never happen, all right?
No, the bias is too strong. I did just want to observe that for SR Peak Check, this is like a good chunk of Team Germany from the World Cup. It's a good chunk of Team Finland from the World Cup, and Danid from Team Sweden from the World Cup. So, like, cool. Good to see that. Like that.
I'd like to point out that Twisted Minds have only dropped 1 map. The all Saudi squad with the Danish backline have looked pretty indomitable, although they have not played any of the 3 teams directly beneath them. They have yet to play EXO or SR Peak Check. So certain caveat there, but when you look at second place and 17-7, and then you look at Twisted Mind and they're 18-1, that's quite a jump from second to first.
Yeah, that is quite the map differential.
Which
So-
team
I
did
think
they get a
they're-
map loss?
They lost to Raspberry.
Oh,
Yeah, they dropped one map
Really?
to Raspberry Racers.
Oh,
Yep, that's their
crazy.
one map drop.
Who are now second bottom in the standings, which doesn't make much sense, to be honest.
Nope.
Yeah, I.
They actually
I
look
feel like
good.
that.
Raspberry's one of those teams. I feel like they look good when you watch them play. They just can't close it out.
I hope they don't look good tomorrow, to be honest.
They playing play.
Yeah, on broadcast, first game tomorrow. A bit of a relegation
Oh.
6-pointer. Actually, I'm going to take. Do you gamers mind if I talk about that for a moment, that game?
No, go for it.
Okay, I'll do a speed minute if that's okay. You can time it.
Okay.
All right, so exclamation point player currently 8th in the standings with 2-4 record. Raspberry Racers 11th in the standings at 1-5 with 5 games to go. Both of these teams have really good remaining schedules, having played all of the top 3 teams, including Twisted Minds, EXO, and SR Peak Check. And that's according to like how good they are, not necessarily where they are in the standings, right? Because is kind of in second right now, and I think they're the 4th best team. But all of them, all of the teams that are kind of near the bottom, like Raspberry and us, including Triple as well, have really nice schedules at the end. Everyone kind of plays each other. And this is kind of the first of those games where the bottom 5 or so teams play each other. So it's going to be a really important game. And to make things more exciting, it's the game on broadcast tomorrow, the first game.
There you go.
Yeah, well, thank you. Much appreciate the update on that.
Last day of EU group stage is EXO versus Twisted Minds. I think that would be if there was one match to really keep an eye on for the top end. I think that's one.
Oh, yeah.
Although
No,
I
that's
do
it.
agree the relegation games are probably gonna have more gravity to them because there's more stakes. But that Twisted Minds versus EXO is going to be a damn good game.
That last day is terrifying because you've got
Yeah.
Triple and Peps who are probably also going to be in that relegation battle. Exclamation point play and Pitbull also in the relegation battle, and then play SR Peak Check.
And then
as well.
and SR. Yeah, those are
that's,
all
that's
going to be really good games.
That's pretty good last day of games. Someone tells me someone's writing the script back there.
Yeah, I've still got to go back and catch up on all this because I was away last week, and then there was a bunch of Overwatch League to watch, and then I was otherwise indisposed yesterday. So I've got a lot of Overwatch contenders to go back and catch up on, so that I look a little less lost next week. I guess that takes us through to NA then. Let's bust through all this so we can get
Let's do
to
it.
talking to Bailey.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we'd be remiss if we just didn't mention contenders at all, considering we're a T2 broadcast. But certainly, let's plow on through
A
this.
T2 broadcast currently broadcasting in the middle of contenders games. Not our fault. We had this time slot first.
That's exactly
That
right.
is true.
We
That
had
is
the
true.
time slot first when they were doing this on the weekends, and then we could recap the weekend on a nice Monday recap
Yeah.
on a podcast. No. You got to go move to contenders games to Tuesday, Wednesday, and now whatever game. Well,
If I find anybody
Out, mate.
if I find anybody involved with Path to Pro, I'm going to really take it up with them. Why? But unfortunately, we don't know anybody in that position. Sadly.
NA is a little more interesting. Haven't quite been as many games, but almost half of all games played have gone to a game 5. Have gone to a map 5. It's like 2 games shy of being half of all games played so far have gone to a map 5. O3 Splash sitting on top at 4-0. They have had 3 map 5 games in their 4 that they've played so far. So I feel like the top end is a lot closer in NA than what we're seeing in EU right now.
I can agree.
It's the maths certainly shakes out the way. I didn't raise this when they were on screen, but obviously we've got O2 Blaster over in Korea, we've got O3 Splash over here in NA, and now in EMEA we do of course have O4 Dash.
Can we make the joke that was made there earlier?
Oh please.
Because at the start of the day they were 0-4 in the record, so everyone was calling them OM4 Dash.
I see.
And I think that's quite mean, but also quite funny.
Well, yeah.
Fair.
But yeah, I mean, if you've been following the NA scene for any amount of time, like the players currently in contest shouldn't really surprise you at all. It's cool to see Kuffa still doing well on Timeless. I believe they're currently they dropped one game. They're 3-1, but like putting up numbers like that when they've got Kuffa playing from all the way over there is pretty impressive.
I thought Rift would be doing better.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the only surprises. I think everything else seems pretty in line.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of new teams coming in for Summer Series Worldwide and Strix, being two of those. And I mean, Worldwide struggling a little bit. Strix not doing too bad. I mean, they've got well-known players on what is a new roster. And I believe Strix also have a team in CAH, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, so they're a new org that have kind of hit the scene pretty hard here in the past few weeks, but doing okay. Like they're not going to shock the world here in Summer Series, but not doing too bad. But Rift is the only surprise to me.
But I guess qualifying through, regardless of the fact that, like, yes, we know a lot of these players. Like Astronex is a great player to have on the tank line. As a team playing together, they have less time in this configuration than, for example, like the bulk of Timeless Saints. And so, like, you know,
sure.
First season nerves is the wrong word, but like, give them time. This is a roster with a lot of potential.
I mean, and their three losses are Wisp, Maryville, or Saints, excuse me, and O3 Splash.
Yeah.
So they're 1-3, but they have played tough squads.
Yeah,
they've played tough games.
Yeah, the games get a lot easier from here on out.
I promised someone something. Wisp is a team to talk about because Neb asked me 2 days ago actually, being like, "Oh, why didn't you not do a podcast episode last week?" And he also requested that Wisp get a shout out for playing really well. And I'm not going to give them a shout out for playing well. I'm going to give them a shout out because Seonjun is on their roster, and that surprised me. Allegedly, Seonjun is like learning English from Rocket and Chopper. Which I think is really cool.
No.
So yeah, there you go. So Seonjun's learning English from Rocket and Chopper, and well, he's a really good Korean DPS player. So we have to talk about him. Thanks, Neb.
If I had to pick one group of people to not learn English from, gamers generally might be right at the top of that list.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Apparently, Chopper's really liked in Korea as well. That does line up with something I heard like ages ago. But when Neb told me that, I was like, yeah, no, that sort of tracks, but also is a little bit surprising to learn, right?
Yeah, I will say this is no specific shade on anybody in Wisp. Like, from what I can tell, you all seem like really nice people. Just gamers in general, I have a level of distrust with that I hope you can understand.
Although I would trust Rocket. Rocket's a cool little guy. Always fun to interview.
Speaking of interviews and appropriate segues, we can stop stalling and actually talk to Bailey about what we're all really here for, the meat of today's episode, the Calling All Heroes 23-24 mid-season update. Yes, that title was workshopped in the run-up to going live today. This is accurate. So, Bailey, wonderful to have you back. Always great to get to talk to you. Why don't you give people that maybe, for whatever reason, don't know who you are, a bit of an introduction as to who you are?
Yeah, for sure. I'm super stoked to be here. So thanks for having me again. Glad that you enjoyed me last time and wanted to bring me back. So that's always a big thanks. So I'm Bailey. My pronouns are she, they. I work on the Overwatch League and some of our other Path to Pro products. Contenders, Calling All Heroes mostly. And I am our product lead for Calling All Heroes. So if you ever got a question or complaint about Calling Heroes, just hit my Twitter DMs. I get enough. Okay. But I'm very happy to always talk about the program. I love it. Yeah. So I'm super happy to be its champion here at Blizzard.
Yeah, can say from experience, Bailey, very quick to pick up on DMs, particularly about appearing on podcasts. In fact, I was, I'll lift back the curtain a little bit here. I was on a bus ride around Salem, Massachusetts when I thought, we should talk to Bailey about coming back on to talk about Calling All Heroes. Dropped the message on the bus ride, and it was kind of all more or less locked in by the time the bus ride finished. It shows how efficient they are. So,
that is a productive bus ride.
It was a pretty good bus ride. It was a very wet day in Salem, Massachusetts, but I did get some work done, and that's the main thing. So Bailey, we've got a long-ranging list of questions here for you today, and I guess the way we frame this is, given that Calling All Heroes has now been standing on its own for a little while, like let's see how you personally think it's going. Are you happy with Calling All Heroes after the first couple of rounds of competition?
Yeah, so I'm honestly really happy. There's always things I wish could be a little bit better, or things I think like could be done a little bit differently. But overall, I think we've really knocked it out of the park. Honestly, I'm like all around very stoked. One thing that to me is just I think a really cool fact is that I believe in our past 5 events, we've had 4 unique teams win every single event this year.
Hmm.
To me, very cool. I think we've really developed like a competitive place where a lot of different teams are at the top level and competing, and to me that's really cool. If anyone's familiar with Game Changers or other DE9 programs, like we don't have a Cloud9 White here winning every single tournament, smashing. We have like a lot of really close matches. I think our top 4 teams are pretty close,
Mhm.
and also our last major, Nixel and Timeless had 2 back-to-back map fivers. It was really close. Both series
And
could have gone either
and
way.
a different team winning each one.
Yeah, exactly. It's so crazy. I think it's honestly just really cool. It's very competitive. I can rant on and on, but I'm just
Well,
really
I mean, that's
stoked.
why you're here.
I'm
Yeah,
This is a
excited.
perfect place to rant on and on.
It's awesome. Yeah. And honestly too, I think the viewership has been something that is really crazy. I think a lot of other esports might see a pretty big drop when you go from your main programming to your DE9 programming. But I think the coolest thing with Calling Out Heroes, you don't see that at all with Overwatch. The viewership is at the same, sometimes even greater than Contenders, and that's crazy. And that's no shout to Contenders. I love Contenders. I'm from Path to Pro myself. But to me, that's just so cool. There's no real gap. I think a big thing is people love Overwatch. They just want to watch Overwatch. It's a new program. It's
Mhm.
different. It's new players, and people just want to check it out, which to me is so cool.
I I wonder if this is. I have an observation that I think Overwatch of a lot of the like main competitive FPS esports, I think has one of the bigger, what you would call like diverse fan bases, right? Do you think that the fact that we, and again, this is anecdotal, I feel like that's the case. Do you think that like the reason it has such success is because that audience is there in a way that it maybe isn't in other spaces?
Oh, 100%. I think anyone who's played Overwatch just knows how diverse it is. It's really a unique title. I think honestly, as you all know, I'm gonna be the Blizzard spokesperson here. Overwatch was kind of founded on like diversity. There's a huge cool cast of characters, and I think our player base really represents that. And programs like Calling All Heroes help really kind of improve that diversity and representation. And people, honestly, people like to watch stuff and like to follow players that look like themselves. I think that is exactly what you just said. We get great viewership because there's a lot of people who are just like our Calling All Heroes players and want to see them on the broadcast. And to me, that's just really cool.
I think it
I
helps that you've got a couple of pretty big. Sorry, Ethan. You've got a couple of like pretty big players with like quite sizable followings. Like SK is the one that jumps to mind. Like I feel like a lot of people tune in to watch SK and Dart Monkeys, for example. I think that's quite a useful thing to have in this situation.
Yeah, I think honestly, the most interesting thing is that Start Monkeys went over to CGL's team called Kunoichi CGL this last major, and they actually didn't make our top 8. They got knocked out in our Swiss stage, and normally SK, Aspen, and Deku were on that team this tournament, which obviously are huge content creators in the Overwatch space, and they didn't make it. And we honestly didn't really see a huge drop in viewership. Obviously, people love to come and cheer them on. I'm the same way. I want to see them succeed. And also they do their streams for the tournaments, which is awesome. They bring their viewership there. But overall, I think our viewership was pretty equal, which to me is really cool. I think it's very nice to know that like your esports program still has a ton of interest, even when your bigger content creators aren't present. I think that shows it's really healthy and that people do really still care.
I mean, it rarely works like that. I mean, the content creators will bring some viewers, but typically it is just exclusive to watch their favorite content creator. It doesn't really stick, and it seems to that is not apparently the case with Calling Our Heroes. Those viewers have stuck around, and that's something extremely rare.
Totally. Honestly, that was one of my bigger surprises. Like I was going into the weekend, like, okay, we're probably going to see a viewership dip, and that was
Right.
literally in my notes, and we didn't see one, which I thought was really awesome.
I'm going to steal the next 2 questions because I thought of a really cool way to pair 2 questions. So the next question that's on our list, right, is do you think there's been a notable increase in skill/performance in the communities CAR represents as a result of Calling All Heroes? Let's talk about your thoughts on that first.
Yeah, 1000%. Yes. Honestly, I track rank generally each tournament. And really cool thing is that our first tournament, I would say the average rank was about like plat to masters was the average participant's rank. This recent major, every single player had peak grandmaster. which to me
Wow.
is just so cool. Like anecdotally, I see and hear a lot of Calling Our Heroes playing ranked. They're grinding a lot harder, and also I think the quality of play has increased dramatically. If you watch some of our first tournaments compared to now, it's a little. I think you see a pretty big jump in terms of game quality.
Mm.
But I do think that's because we've had this program that's existed for a while, so people have something to scrim for and they have something to compete for. And one of the major things that I wanted to solve is that with DE&I events, what tends to happen a lot across the industry is teams just form for the one event, disband, and they never come back again. And it's
Yeah.
kind of similar where like the teams that win those are the best players at the moment. And they just stomp everyone, they win, they disband, they don't scrim at all. And that's not really building community, and that's not really helping the path to pro for these players. So this year we did something a little different, where kind of Contenders has like its splits. We specifically for Calling Out Heroes kind of went with more of an FGC model, where it was like majors and minors with more recurring tournaments that happen in a shorter time span, but they're more frequent. I think this has actually been really beneficial, and it's just been like, oh, there's this competition in April, there's competition in May, there's competition in June. So there's always something to play in that you're never totally locked out of because they're short. You kind of knock them out, and then you just prep for the next one. And to me, that really helps with our retention of players, which then, because you're retaining the players, they always have something to scrim for. It makes them get better instead of just being like, okay, guys, we're out of a tournament, let's stop scrimming. Or, hey, we're just going to form this one team for this event. We're going to win the prize pool, and then we're never going to play together again. And I think with this program, we've really been able to just this year help me keep these teams together and scrimming, which to me is super important.
I think there's a point that we have come back to a number of times over the year and a bit we've been doing this podcast is like one of the biggest predictors of success for a team is how long can you stay together as a cohesive unit? Like, are you replacing your roster every season? You're probably not going to have a lot of success. Like, long-term development of teams is great for
and
the players on
individuals
that
as
team.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the success of the individuals on that team is directly tied to that as well.
Yeah.
You bet.
So before I actually move on to the second question, you brought up the format. I actually heckin' love the format. I think it's really good. I really enjoy it. I of course work with a Calling All Heroes team that's a little bit less experienced, and they love the format as well. It keeps them engaged. It keeps them active, and I think it's a really competitive format. And I hope it stays for the long run. And then the next question is sort of format related as well, but it's actually related to, we've kind of seen a big positive increase in terms of performance from the current players in the Challenger series of Calling All Heroes. We had a new addition last Calling All Heroes in the Rising series. Didn't get too much interest in terms of signups, but can you tell me about the Rising series and what your goals are for the Rising series in the future?
Yeah, honestly, just to be super transparent, when we first hosted Calling Our Heroes, we had a pretty wide range of skill ranks who were trying to register and play. And they just wanted to be part of something. They wanted to participate in the program, be involved, be part of that program. And unfortunately, it kind of sucks to play in these tournaments and lose to a GM team and lose to a GM team, and it's not fun. You don't really gain a lot out of it. So our hope was with the Rising series was create a place where those players who aren't the same skill level but still want to compete and still want to have something to strive to, for them to participate in as well. And so, long story short, it's basically we want to serve those players that aren't at the top level already or who aren't already existing. Because honestly, with programs like Calling All Heroes, it's about getting more people invested in competitive. And the more angles you provide to do that, instead of like telling someone, hey, the only way to get involved in Calling All Heroes is basically grind ranked until you're GM and join team. No, you're able to join team now at any rank. I mean, that really helps with our acquisition of players and is so key. And honestly, I really wish I thought of this earlier because I think it would have really been really strong at the start of a season when we just had more buzz and people knew about it. So I'm hoping with time, we'll just get more people to recognize it, create teams, and continue to scrim because honestly, like, people here can probably attest. Like, everyone's been on like a Plat Overwatch team, and that was so fun. And like to me, that was some of the most fun I had playing Overwatch. And my first team was me and my Plat and Diamond buddies scrimming like 2 times a week or 1 time a week, and it was still so fun. And that was my entry into competitive. And I think that's a lot of people's entry as well. You know,
100%.
Like, to give an analogy to traditional sports, you're not going to jump immediately into the NFL. You're going to start playing football like in smaller leagues, or you know what I mean. It's just like that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, and I hope one day we actually see the story of like a Rising series player who eventually maybe gets to a final of a Challenger series. That could be something really
Love that.
awesome. So when it comes to the growth of the Rising series, do you think that's just going to be kind of like people, spreading the word sort of thing, or what do you think is going to help to the growth of that program?
Yeah, I do think there'll be people spreading it kind of organically. Honestly, something that you'll notice, I think if you follow any DEI esports program pretty closely, is that these teams did not exist until there was a program. Like the players were there, but the teams, the orgs, the communities did not exist. You have to build it and they will come. It sounds cheesy, but that's just, I think, realistically how it works.
Yeah, awesome.
Hmm.
Sorry, it was a tougher question. You answered it amazingly. Jesus, we
I
should get you on
appreciate
more
it.
often. You'd always say like you're a professional.
I did want to say like the importance of grassroots stuff in Overwatch, I think, is maybe if you're only a casual viewer or you only watch Overwatch League, you maybe don't understand like how big a part of the DNA of the game that is. Like we in the Map 5 Discord, we have a specific role for people that have like come through the Owlet tournament when that was running years and years ago, and the number of people that have come through Owlet either as coaches, as broadcast talent, or as players in in contenders is kind of crazy. And if you don't have those opportunities, then you just don't have as good a competitive scene. So the fact that there is something in place that is sanctioned by Blizzard is like one of the best things we could possibly do for Overwatch as an esport.
I totally agree. And my background, I used to be Illahel Esports. We run Get Good. Illahel still does Get Good, which is super awesome. And honestly, it's like you said, a healthy esport is where there's always a place to get involved. And for everyone, I really I said it before, but I think it's so strong. It's just like, I think once you play on your first organized play, like a team for Overwatch, you never go back. It hooks you. It's magical almost.
Yeah.
Like, I hate playing ranked. It sucks. But playing competitive Overwatch, so fun. So fun. Organized play is like incredible. And I just really want everyone to have that experience because it's magical and it really hooks you.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. That's a wonderful clip. So we may use that as a wonderful clip. Thank you, Bailey.
Go for it. You got to get the TikTok, YouTube Shorts,
I've never competed.
Really? Not in
I've never
anything?
In anything.
All right, Jeff, we got to get you on something.
I don't know if that's a good idea.
Okay, hopefully we are back. I do have YouTube running in another window. I can double check. Okay, welcome back. Not sure what happened, everybody. We had a little bit of a crash on my end on OBS, but we're back in it now. Where in the heck were we? Oh yes. I'll start my question over again, just in case. So Bailey, we've spoken about are you happy with Calling All Heroes and the viewership and the performance of the players compared to when you started? Like when I realized this was not a Bailey on her own doing this thing. There was a lot of people involved. But when this was originally pitched to Blizzard, how did you quantify what this was going to be and what success would look like for Calling All Heroes? And have you hit that or exceeded that target? Oh, apologies. I'm getting... sorry, this was again on my side. For some reason, when we jumped back in, the desktop audio was muted. And so I believe we have missed everything from you three. I was heard, you three weren't. So, apologies stream, apologies Bailey, apologies co-hosts. Jeff, I need you to get your computer done so that I don't have to run prod anymore, because I'm not good at it.
Soon enough, my friend. Soon
Okay.
enough.
Thank you very much, everybody in chat who was letting us know about that. And I'm glad I had that open, because I had missed that entirely. So, Bailey, for the third time, compared to how it was initially sourced for... how it was initially presented to Blizzard, how have you met your targets? Have you exceeded your targets?
Yeah, so as I was mentioning before, it was that our measures of success were the sentiment of the players, the participation, and the viewership. I think overall viewership, I was expecting a pretty significant drop-off, as I mentioned before. I think across other esports programs, there's a pretty clear cookie cutter of like, here's tier 1, here's tier 2, and then DE&I programs have a pretty big drop-off, like 50 to 80% drop-off. But we're holding really strong, which is really great. In terms of our participation, I think the number we had in the estimates was 24 teams. We've been coasting about 30 teams each of our tournaments, and to me, that's a pretty good number. The community is pretty small, but it's dedicated, and our retention is really good. I'd say that we have the same amount of teams pretty much every single event. The retention is very strong. People like the program, and people want to continue to compete. And that is also another good measure of the sentiment, is that we have retained a good amount of players. The amount of players that we have not retained generally were our lower rated players that we wanted the Rising series to accommodate, because previously they wanted to compete and they wanted to be involved, but the tournament format it's not super fun to go against a GM team and lose. So we've created the Rising series so there is something to compete. There is some way to get involved for those participants that have lapsed, and we're hoping to bring them all back with this new program.
You were mentioning before also that you put a lot of stock in the feedback from your players, and that was very good. Why is that such an important measure to you? Why do you think that's more important than, say, viewership or feedback from just the everyday person versus the players in the tournament?
Totally. Honestly, like, I think we've all been around the block and been on Twitter, and we've seen the response to like women's and marginalized gender programs across the esports industry. It's rough. Like, the public doesn't really get it at first. It takes kind of a lot of topics, a lot of questions, a lot of conversations. People have to learn and become educated, and I've seen that happen in pretty much every esport. I feel like Overwatch had that conversation pretty quickly, but honestly, I was expecting a pretty negative public sentiment initially. I am quite surprised that the public sentiment was so great. People were so supportive, people understood very quickly, and our bigger detractors, if me and someone else had a quick conversation, they seemed to actually get it, which to me was just really awesome. The second part of your question was on the participants, like, why is that important? And honestly, without them, we don't have a program. I think it's like the simplest, cheesy answer. But the second thing is that I honestly feel like the public sentiment and, or even, actually, I'm gonna take a step back. The whole point of this program is to elevate marginalized genders in the path to pro and get them to Overwatch League. Honestly,
Damn
like,
right.
case in point, period. Like, that's what we want to do. And if they don't like the program and they don't want to compete, then why are we even hosting it? You know, like, nothing else matters. If we had a 10 viewer stream, I don't care. If we get like people organically out, that is so cool, and I could not care about anything else. And that means we've won. You know, won in like asterisks. But like, I think it's a, to be kind of cheesy, it's like a war, it's not a battle. There's a lot of steps and a lot of progress to be made. And honestly, just we need the players to be happy, and I really value like player feedback. I try to spend a lot of my time chatting and listening to players and asking for thoughts, because it is really important. And honestly, I think more than any other esports program, the Calling Out Heroes community is pretty small, and we want to just continue to support that and make sure that they feel welcome, because one of our main pillars of this program is like community. And if you don't feel like welcomed in the community, you don't feel like it's for you, then the whole program's kind of failed. So like I said it before, but to me that's just so important, is that this is a place people want to be and want to participate in. And that is super, super important, because if that fails, like, literally like nothing else matters. Like, I don't care if we get 100,000 viewers. If the players aren't happy, I'm not happy.
I love that, and I love that your priorities are with those people. I think that's really rich, really wholesome, and exactly what is needed. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's super cheesy, but the players first. Honestly, everything else should be figured out after that, and that's honestly how all esports and gaming should go.
Cheesy is just a word that people who don't know how to handle their emotions use to describe things that are awesome.
or my jokes.
Or your jokes, which are,
Are very much
weapons
cheesy.
grade Gorgonzola, yes. Bailey, I wanted to ask, I hope you don't mind this. This is actually one that isn't in the list of questions that we
I'll go for
sent
it.
to
Throw
you.
it at me.
So I'd love to know how you feel kind of being thrust into the spotlight, because we discussed in our first conversation with you last year that the Calling All Heroes is not the Bailey project. You are heavily involved, but there were obviously other people there involved in running that. But you have, in a very real way, become kind of the face of it. You've been on broadcast segments talking about Calling All Heroes. And I know you from Elo Hell days, where you're kind of doing backroom TO and get good organization stuff, not the broadcast side of things at all. How has that been for you?
Yeah, honestly, this is a personal thing. I used to be a terrible public speaker. I hated talking. I was not confident, and for me, that's besides the program, like that's a personal goal. I want to get better at public speaking. I want to stop being nervous, and so, like as a personal improvement goal, I try to say yes to all these opportunities to get involved because it helps me grow, and I think that's super helpful. But to answer for the program, honestly, like there are so many people that are involved in Calling Out Heroes and help. And like I want to do the cheesy twit longer of naming every single person, but I'll forget someone and I'll feel bad. But like everyone really plays an important role. Every little thing helps, and just I really wish I could give more thanks and props to every single person in the program because every little thing matters. It's like from the chat moderators to the observers to the admins to the verification staff to our players even. Like a lot of stuff matters, and sorry, I was gonna say it's cheesy, but it's wholesome. But it takes a village to do it.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a second point on the face part. Something that I find really helpful for players is having someone kind of relatable. I don't really want to say I'm a super relatable person, but I think super to get really granular about it, as a transgender woman, I don't always feel welcome in women's or in marginalized gender spaces because not every esports super welcoming. I've had some pretty negative experiences. I played in women's tournaments and gotten hate for being transgender and told I shouldn't compete and blah 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 and other stuff like that. And I'm not the only person. That's a really common issue. And for example, when we first started Calling Out Heroes, I got a lot of questions like, are transgender women allowed to play? And to me, those questions just break my heart. It's really sad. And I think it's really important to have someone who is genderqueer as a public face for the program because that just shows hey, oh, I know I'm able to be here because the person running it is also genderqueer, or not running it, but the person who's leading it, and so I find that's really important. And for me, that's also probably even more than the self-improvement and that comes tertiary. I think first off, it's just make people feel welcome and feel like they can belong. And I feel having that public face that you can see and point to as someone who's similar to yourself is really important and is really helpful. It's really hard to quantify that, but I know from my own personal experience, I feel weird participating in events sometimes that are DEI focused because I'm not sure how I'll be treated. However, if I know the people running it are like myself, I'm not really that worried. And I think that really goes a far way.
That's really interesting. Obviously, it's a terrible shame that you have been made to feel unwelcome, but I'm glad that experience has sort of put you in a lightning rod might not be the right statement, but in such a good position to be. I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to use the word icon, but a beacon for people in this to be yes, of course, this is a space for me. I think that's the best possible thing you could take from being made unwelcome elsewhere. So you to be applauded for that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And honestly, I don't even feel bad about having those experiences. I feel those experiences have galvanized me to just want to do better and make a better place for other people so they don't have to have the same experiences.
Yeah. I think it's very easy to if you are part of an outside group, very easy to be worn down by that kind of treatment. And I think a lot of people do come away from that kind of treatment just going, well, why would I bother doing this? It was a negative experience. So it's really, really cool to get the framing of, how and why things like this work out the way they do.
Super appreciate it.
And as far as the first part, I think you're incredibly well spoken and articulate.
Yeah.
And awesome to talk to. So yeah.
You know what? You're
Thank
probably
you.
better than half of us, and we're meant to be like. Actually, you're probably better
Yeah,
than all of us.
I get
Otherwise,
paid to
I have
talk,
to.
and yeah, you're probably better at it than I am for sure.
Yeah, probably all of us, to be honest. And we're meant to be like people who speak on the microphone. I think that's a compliment
Y'all
for
are
you.
awesome,
I don't think
don't
it's an insult at us.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I guess we get a nice segue here into a question that actually is on the list of questions that you were prepped with, which is, do you think that Calling the Heroes has done? If you have already touched on this briefly, has Calling the Heroes done much to move the needle of the perception of marginalized genders within the broader Overwatch community?
Yes, yes, and yes. So I'd say that broadly, I think every esport goes, and honestly, any competition or just community really goes through the kind of growing pains of having these awkward gender-based conversations of like, why is this important? And I feel like we passed that point, and people now recognize its importance. And I'd say the biggest success metric of that is the amount of players who are in Calling All Heroes who are in our path to Krill is huge. I know it's a small number, but even if it's a single digit number, it still really makes a difference because like cheesy thing for me, these programs really don't make the difference now. They make the huge difference in 5 years because these programs are so important for the 15-year-old person that's playing Overwatch and wants to get involved. When they're 20, they're gonna kick ass in Overwatch League, and that's my hope, you know. And I think it's just when you start on an equal playing field, and then you get to scrim for a couple of years, just like everyone else. You know, once you're old enough to play in Overwatch League, you're gonna rock it. You're gonna do awesome. And we're already seeing that with contenders. We have a lot of Calling All Heroes players who are also playing contenders and doing really well. And to me, that is so cool. It just shows that it's working. And if it's working now, then my thought is like in 3 to 5 years. I know it's a long time in esports years, but I really feel like it'll do a lot, and it's gonna make all the difference.
I timed that swig beautifully.
I like how we all just went silent and just let it happen.
Yeah, thanks.
Like,
Really appreciate it, guys.
I could have picked up with something and pulled the distraction, but no, we all just kind of like stared at you and just stopped in time
You
for
gotta
a
stay
moment.
hydrated. That's number one.
It's true.
It just broke for a second. It's a little late over.
Yeah, I think you're quite right to look at the long term of this. Like it's such a cliched conversation, but like when you bring up the subject of marginalized gender tournaments, TEI inclusive tournaments, like the pushback that you get from certain factions of the community is like, oh, if they were good enough, they'd be here anyway already. And like a big chunk of the reason why they're not is because they don't have these spaces where they're made to feel welcome. It's incredible how all of this is tied together.
And speaking of, I'm sorry, go ahead. Do you want to elaborate on that?
I was just gonna say no. Yes, 100%. So go for it.
Well, I was going to push this along into, and this kind of leads into the upcoming question of how does this compare to contenders? Do you want that to even be a comparison? Is this something separate as far as training people to become professional Overwatch players? What is the goals on that level being compared to Overwatch contenders?
Totally. Honestly, I think the goal is to get us to a place where these programs aren't necessary. Obviously, we want to have the program, but like in an ideal world, we don't need programs like Calling All Heroes because it is equal. Everyone feels welcome. There is no issues of discrimination. People don't feel behind or feel like they can't get involved. So for me, what's really important is that I really don't think Calling All Heroes should be its own space. I would say that if anyone follows Game Changers really closely, that's a current pretty large debate. Kind of the general like philosophy I'd say that I've at least recognized is that you start with these marginalized gender programs, and then you move to co-ed, and then you move to full integration. That's kind of like the idea. And I would say that's starting to be a more prevalent discussion in the Game Changers space, which I think is pretty interesting. It is pretty common for teams to call themselves co-ed, having players from Game Changers and players from mainline VCT. I think it's pretty interesting. And honestly, I don't view Calling All Heroes as its like league that's equivalent to tier 2. I think it should never be that. I think it should just be a resource to get people to tier 2 and contenders. If you have these extra resources, you'll compete with the best, and if you're playing with the best, you're gonna get better. And I think that's the whole point in keeping people there. I would say that it's a pretty sorry, I love talking about like the nitty gritties of like DE9 programs.
Yeah,
That's why
totally.
we've got you
That's what
here.
people are here to click
Cool.
on. That's what they're clicking on.
Oh yeah, I love it. So women's chess is an interesting thing. In women's chess, women's chess is one of the most long-standing and like supported DE9 sports programs that has a lot of case studies. And I'd say that the sad reality of like the overwhelming kind of question is like, why do women's chess players struggle? And like, there's only one women's chess player who's ever been in the top 10. That's still a huge accomplishment, by the way. I think that is a massive accomplishment. But it's been won in the past like 80 years or so. And a lot of reason people cite about that is that the women's chess scene is just segmented. And people don't feel, I don't exactly prescribe to this, but the narrative is that women's chess players do not participate in the main chess tournaments. And I think a lot of things unpacked with that, but I would say that the main thing to take away is that we don't want to carve out a space. We don't want people to only participate here. We want people to play in all of our programs. You know, we want players in Calling All Heroes to play in Overwatch World Cup, to play in Dive Party, to play in Open Division, playing Contenders, etc. Because if you're playing in everything, there is no real distinction. It's just an additional program that you can participate in. It's not a carve out. And I'd say that a big reason also too is that our format is really conducive to that. Like a lot of people have been have always asked for more tournament days or more broadcast days, but honestly, it's kind of nice to have them be so short so that you can focus on all the other tournaments. Our players are able to play in Calling Out Heroes and Contenders and Dive Party and blah blah blah. To me that's really important that you're able to play in everything, so you don't get this carved out space, and that you do get to play against the best and continue to do that.
I actually have a note on that. So one of the most important things that I've noticed when working with Calling All Heroes team is they're not used to routines as much as maybe your tier 1 players are, right? Because they've never had the opportunity to have that learning, right? On why a routine is important to being a player who's grinding at this sort of high level. So that was definitely something that was difficult. But when there's so many tournaments, right, and if they ever overlapped, right, and they were kind of their own thing, that would be a big problem, because then you'd have to balance out your schedule and it would be even more difficult. Is that something you consider when it comes to the Calling All Heroes players as well, and the program itself?
Yes, 1000%. I honestly internally make a huge effort to make sure all of our esports programs do not overlap. To me, it's really important that there's a time and a place for everything, and the spotlight's there for everyone, but also the opportunity to play. And I think what you said about routine is so important. To me, the big part with this format that I want to do is just make sure people are playing consistently. It's predictable. You know what to expect. And the amount of times I had to explain how Swiss worked on our first tournament to now, oh my gosh,
Trust me.
it has changed a lot.
I have Sunshine Bread on my team, and I swear to God, you know that calendar of where all the tournaments are across the year? I think I've sent that to her about 10 times. Just to explain,
nice.
Here's when the tournaments are, here's where we have to plan. It's actually a really nice looking calendar as well. Can we? Yeah, it's now on the screen.
Speaking of, I've not quite got that set up, but we've already had Major 1, so fine. Oh, I'm missing off the right-hand side as well. Oh, God.
That's not good, because those are the really important ones as well.
Hang on. I'm working on it.
There you go.
Little more.
Little more.
Nice.
There we go. NA Pro.
Yeah.
And I already give big credit to the format. But do you want to run us through like your thought process when it comes to this format, Billy?
Yeah. So, oh man, when I first drafted this format, there was a lot of different ways this was going to go. Like, the first initial draft of this program I had was like 4 weeks of qualifiers into a major, and then repeat that 4 times. And I think this is a little bit better. There's just a lot of Overwatch going on. There's so much to play in, and I really think it's important to give that space to the other programs and let Calling Our Heroes have its moments and have those be specific. And I think this is really accomplishing. So, high level where I got this inspiration is that my last position, I worked in an esports production company where we were partnered to work on Skullgirls, which is a fighting game, if you aren't familiar. And I drafted the actual ecosystem plan for Skullgirls. It was called the Skullgirls Championship Series, and it looked just like this, where we had our major events and our minor events into our championship with an LCQ. Who doesn't love an LCQ? But I'd say that for me, like kind of like the main stuff that got me here was that, as I talked before, recurring programming is super important. You want players to stay invested, stay competing, and continue to compete. We have a couple gaps, which I think is super helpful. Give space for other programs, give space for some downtime. You're not always playing. I think that's super helpful. A lot of people will talk amazing kind of rose-tinted glasses about old Open Division days where you played one match a day for 12 weeks straight into a playoffs. That's really fun, but that's a huge commitment, and we've seen that our players don't seem to want it as much anymore. And if I'm wrong, please let me know. But from my understanding,
I'm
I
with
think
you.
you're right.
okay, yeah, I think people like these kind of condensed events where you play in this time, the time commitment's minor, so you can kind of clear your schedule. Clearing your schedule every single week for a tournament match is kind of rough, because when you get rulebooked by a team that does not want to change the default match time, that sucks, you know? So I think this really accomplishes that. And this also, to me, really helps us create more partners in the program. That's not something I've talked about a lot yet, but we have a lot of partners in the program. And we have a little more to come, which will be shared soon, TM. So keep an eye out, and I'm really excited for that. But I think this
There's also-
format... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, isn't there like a big Going On Heroes announcement like soon? Like,
We are planning to announce the next couple events in our season soon, TM. So keep your eyes peeled.
someone.
I have to
someone-
ask, is this soon or Blizzard soon? Because those are
Hello.
different things.
Well, I
wasn't
am from
talking about
Blizzard.
it.
That's why I had
was
to
not-
ask.
I see. I was thinking about another thing. I think there's another big thing coming up. I don't want to talk about it because I don't know if I'm allowed to. I'm not even supposed to know. I don't think. So there's something on the timeline relating to Calling Out Heroes, right? That's going to be coming out soonish. Okay.
Can I just say, Ethan, of all the people to say maybe I'm
I
not
should have
supposed
said
to
this.
know this to,
No. It's nothing to do with the actual Calling Out Heroes program. It's about to be something external to the Calling Out Hero program that's relative to it. Also, is in. Oh.
just dig that hole, dig it deeper and deeper.
Okay. There is a cool team entering Calling Out Heroes soon. I'll say that.
Okay.
Is that
I think what we should do is very hurriedly move on to the next question
I think that's a good idea.
before
Sorry.
something
I was
gets
I was
said
gonna
that can't be
ask
taken back.
about the schedule
Before
again.
things
right.
get dicey here.
So I'm so bad. I should have
Oh,
done
good
this.
Lord.
I was going to ask about the finals, the championship in February, right? That is a long way away. What are your aspirations for that? Because that's going to be a big event. That's a long time to prepare for this in terms of like actually getting the best 8 teams to that event. So, what are your aspirations for that event?
So I would say, to make it short, because I've been giving really long answers, I apologize.
Don't.
I just want it to be a celebration of the year and the season. To me, that's really important. I think it is just like, for me, my main goal is have it be a celebration and have it have, like, I think what's really important in like kind of, I would say that like year 0 was last year, where we did like our short like quarter tournaments into a finals. That was cool. For me, this is really year 1. And I think what's really important for these programs is making some stories, making some storylines, making some cool figures and like players that people want to follow. I think making stars is like the way to say it. And I'm hoping that by our championship, we just have these stars, these storylines that people want to follow and, you know, and see. And for me, I'm really hoping that around our championship, I'm hoping to make a lot of content around those stars, around those journeys, and just make people kind of be aware of this. February is a pretty downtime for Overwatch esports in general, so I'm really excited to kind of be able to hog up all that oxygen and have.
I think it's smart. I think it's really smart.
Thank you, that was the intention. I think we'll be able to just kind of like everything will be on Calling Out Heroes because everything else will have ended or is not having a ton of stuff at the time. We'll be able to focus on Calling Out Heroes, the program, and just celebrate that. And to me, that's just what I'm hoping to do. I know I said like 5 times, but I think it's awesome.
As a Path to Pro podcast, we thank you for giving us some content in February when it is normally a bone dry drought.
I got you.
So thank you very much.
And I know, because weirdly enough, even though it's so far away, right, obviously I work with a lot of comp players and they all keep talking about this championship, right? They all keep talking about it, right? And I'm like, right, first of all, Sunshine, right? We need to keep doing well in tournaments to talk about it, okay, right? And she's like, okay, I'm like, okay, right, okay. But everyone keeps talking about this championship. They're really excited, and the big focus of everyone is to qualify for that championship, right? Give someone a good long-term goal, which I think is awesome. I think that's lacking in your like contender systems. Sorry, I'm distracted.
Totally.
Is that actually it's your actual dog? I thought it was a
Yeah,
teddy bear.
apologies. He demanded to be on screen.
Apologies accepted. Yeah, no, it gives the players a good, easy, long-term goal, which I think is really helpful, especially when you're kind of just entering playing competitive, right?
1,000%.
Rather than OG placement.
Yeah, human beings we're task monkeys, and we just like getting tasks done, just like
Mhm.
getting everything knocked out. And I think like our small ape brains just want to do a task and find a goal and just accomplish that, and that is so important. And I think that's a great point about contender season. Having a mega moment that you're working towards and striving towards is really important. It helps contextualize the entire season because what are a mid-season point, and we have a bunch of different standings for our teams, and that is really important to like teams can think like, oh, I really need to do well in this event because we want enough circuit points to go to championship, and it really helps qualify everything and make certain events more important than others. And as you said, just that goal I think is so important, and to me it's just really cool of like everything kind of can build up to that, and you have something cool that just like you're working hard for it. I think that's just so cool and it's awesome. And our brains just go, oh my gosh, goal, look at that. It's so cool. I want to do that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you also can create something that's consistent. Where you are every year looking forward to that February event. I mean, like, and it becomes this known quantity that happens at the same time. Like, that's something I feel has been a little lacking in the path to pro scene. We've had it a little bit with collegiate kind of stepping up the past couple of years, but we haven't had that consistency like Calling All Heroes is bringing, and particularly with this kind of annual championship type of event. So I think it's amazing, super important,
Yeah.
and it's amazing. I cannot wait for February.
I appreciate it. Honestly, like to take us back to like 3 questions ago, part of how I got to this format too was that I wanted that mega moment, the cool
Yeah.
thing of you're working towards, and then also I wanted to have the entire season announced from the start because to me
Right.
that just makes it legit. You keep your teams around. Announcing event to event is kind of rough, but if you just know like, hey, there's a major in June, I gotta play. I gotta keep an eye out, and then even if we don't know the exact dates or exact partner or whatever's going on, just say, hey guys, there's a tournament in June or July. Keep an eye out. We'll let you know later. People have this goal to work towards. They know it exists, and that is so important.
Yeah.
And I would say that like something I was really stressed out at the beginning of the year was that after December, we had a couple months where we just didn't share anything COD because we couldn't. And I was just really hoping to get this full program being able to be announced. And I used to stress so much about that downtime and people being like, oh my god, what's happening to COD? Is COD dead? Blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
to me, that was just so cool to be able to announce the full year program and be like, no, it's here. There's all this you can do, and here's the entire picture. There's no surprises. It's just you get what you sign up for, and I think that's in esports. That's crazy. I think
I'm a
it's
little
really
jealous.
cool.
I wish I could lay out a 1-year schedule for Map 5.
I wish
You
I
know
could
what's
lay out
crazy?
an hour-long schedule for Map 5.
True. That's what the Rudder Show is meant to be. We're not very good at it. But what I will say is an Overwatch team manager.
We came up. Wait, we are very. I'm looking at
Me?
you, Ocean. I'm looking at you.
Well, do you know what? I would actually like to talk about me being responsible, which probably bad to do on my own podcast. As an Overwatch team manager, I've worked in contenders in multiple regions, and I also working with some Commonly Heroes talent. Thank you for giving us a schedule, right? Means I think we've got our schedule in terms of scrims, like all the way done to like the end of the 2 minor events. So, yeah, thank you for the long-term schedule.
Of course, no, I think it's so helpful because like I used to compete, I used to coach teams. Everyone, the most frustrating thing was like, if you didn't know what's next, you don't know if you have to be scrimming or not, and then you never get to plan your vacation time or your time off. And people burn out, and honestly, that's like
Yeah.
burnout is so huge. And if you're always scrimming, teams are gonna burn out. But if they know events are here and events are here, you know when to take a week off, let everyone recharge and get back into it, and when you need to go hard and scrim a ton.
Mhm.
I guess we are too far away from hearing any details about what the championship might look like.
I was wanting to ask that too, but I'll leave that one to you. I'll leave that one to you, Phil.
Well, I mean that's the question. Obviously, if you can't talk about it, you can't talk about it. But are we talking LAN? Are we talking broadcast on Overwatch League channel? What are we looking at?
Yeah, so I'll give the bad news. No land. I
Ah,
think land would be super cool, but lands are tough. It's a
And
lot
expensive.
goes into it.
Okay, I have a
Very
question.
expensive.
If
Mhm.
somebody randomly dropped like 200 grand, would there be a land?
Ooh.
If someone just gave you
Ooh.
200 grand, would there be a land?
I think that's a off podcast question.
That is an off podcast question, but honestly, everything's up in the air. It's pretty far away. Like
Okay, fair enough.
What a
I've-
diplomatic answer.
I've made lands happen in a month before, so like I know what I'm doing, and who knows?
So
World could go crazy.
if we did a stream, like a charity stream, where one of the incentives was make Chef Billy bold, right, and got 200 grand and gave it to you, there would be a land. Is that what we're saying?
Oh, I don't know if I want to sign my name on that one yet. But I will say that the likelihood a land would happen would increase.
Okay.
It would definitely increase. I
You
do feel-
you could
Oh,
be
go
a
ahead.
politician very easily.
I was just about to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Politician penguin.
You know what's funny? My major was politics.
Oh,
No
it
way.
all makes
Wow.
sense. There we
no
go.
way.
That's actually hilarious.
Yeah, I am from Maryland. I grew up
Oh.
around DC. I grew up in the suburbs of DC, and politics was my major. So
You speak that language.
in another world, I was going to be a politician. It just didn't
Wow.
shake out for me.
You know,
I currently live in Elkridge, Maryland, like just outside of Baltimore.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm from Rockville.
Oh, really? Yeah, just down the road then.
That's crazy.
It's
Wow,
a small world. Yeah.
Small world.
And,
And,
we can go into this off podcast. The number of people I know from playing Overwatch in Maryland is ridiculous, and I find more all the time.
That's
We're
so
going to have
crazy.
a Maryland role in the podcast channel now, apparently.
Apparently,
Yeah.
I would also like to extend a thank you from the entire Overwatch community for not becoming a politician and instead getting into esports. Thank you.
yeah, no, that's good.
Much
I
appreciated.
will say though that running tournaments is similar to being a politician. So
Oh, yeah?
not too far away. You got to balance a lot of people, I think.
Fair.
Is that? Oh no. See, I was going to ask the question: was that being an American politician or a Northern Irish politician? But that's a dangerous question politically for Northern Ireland. Oh,
I'm going to move on and
Yeah, go
let's
ahead.
push on through the run of show here because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and this event in particular has such a unique community to it. Is there anything that you'd want that community to know? Is there something? There's things that go on that you wish that you could just shout from the rooftops?
Yes. So I just want to I wish that I could give more prompts to everyone who works in the program because it really takes a village, and there's so many people that are helping out, volunteering, giving their thoughts, and honestly, I have so many people reach out to me, and they're always like, "I'm so sorry to bother you, Bailey," or "I'm sure you're busy, but I have this thing. Please bother me." I love to be talked to because I just want to make it the best for everyone, and it's really important. I love just any feedback. I'm one of those people that just really does not I don't sit too long. If I screw up, I'm just okay, I screwed up. Sucks. I'll work on it. I'll be better. Thanks everyone for letting me know. And so I want that feedback, and I want to keep making things better. And obviously, we're all constrained in however ways we're constrained for our programs and the stuff we work on in our projects. But I want to make this best for everyone, and I just want people to know that. So please always share your thoughts. And also, just give a big props to everyone who does this. There's so many people helping out, and we really care. And I wish that more people could recognize that. I would say that kind of in a somber note. Something is that we see every Twitter post that gets posted, and I see a lot of stuff. It's oh my gosh, cost F let this person in. This person's not supposed to be here, or blah blah blah, or I can't believe they did this. We see that stuff and we talk about it. So I just want to let everyone know that we're not ignoring things. We care. We're giving it our attention and our focus, and we just want to make it best for everyone. So we are really focused on doing that and making sure it's the best it can be. And we're all human and we make mistakes, so I think that goes for anything. That's something else I just want to say. And we just care, and I hope everyone can recognize that.
Well, I think your passion and the purity of your goals and intentions certainly comes across with the whole project. So
Thank you.
I guess.
There's
this
also-
Oh, go on, Jeff.
Oh, I was just wanted to mention that you were talking about people reaching out to you. We've had several comments in chat about how awesome you are to talk to and how helpful you've been when they've reached out. And So, I mean, just through our YouTube chat here during our silly little podcast, that's been noted. So I just wanted to throw that encouragement and yeah,
Thank you. I
throw
appreciate
that
it.
along. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. It honestly means a lot. It helps me like want to do the best I can.
What I
Anyway,
was
apologies to cut you off, Phil.
he said, cutting me off a second time.
Sorry about that.
I was going to say,
Hate to
Bailey,
interrupt.
I am just going to mute you, is what I'm going to do. What I was going to say, Bailey, is we are very rapidly approaching the end of our question list. So I know you have a specific point that you wanted to talk about at the end of this. We'll leave that to the end. So we're now 8 months, I think, into probably a little bit more into Calling All Heroes proper. Knowing what you know now about how everything has gone, what has worked, what hasn't worked, is there anything you would have changed from what your vision was at the start, what the vision was at the start?
Yeah, I'd say that I think the big thing is the Rising series. That to me is like the most granular, just like pick something out of the hat and I can like say as concrete. Having a dedicated program to the lower ranks who are just getting started, I think is so key. And I wish I come from Elo House, like I know it, I know how it works, I know how it runs. I just wish I thought about including that in the program and knowing how to make that work in this kind of space because I find that's really important, and I also feel like that needs to come from the start to continue that strong
Yeah.
participation.
I was about to ask, do you feel like not having it earlier on has harmed Calling All Heroes in any way?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I would say that the players that we've not retained have been those lower ranked players who just don't have in the main tournaments. And so I wish I made that connection and figured that out earlier, and I think that would have been a lot stronger.
But I think all things considered, you know, the fact that that particular course correction has been made, it sounds like a very small thing overall. And and I think everything we've discussed about, you know, the players being happy and the viewership being good, like pretty good stuff here. If that's the only thing you can say that you think could have gone better.
Yeah,
Great.
obviously, I think there's a couple granular things of like I miscommunicated this thing, or we changed this thing late, or I made this silly ruling that isn't a huge deal but it annoyed people. I just like those little slip ups. I think are always going to happen. We're all human.
yeah.
I wish I knew better in the moment, and I wish I communicated better or clearly. Oh, that would be something that's pretty specific. I think it's just making sure that the process to play is like pretty clear. I think that would be something I would improve in the future. I think it just needs to be easy to participate and easy to understand, and just have that communication be kind of helpful to understand for everyone. But overall, I think it's just like I made myself and the whole team have probably made a few admin kerfuffles that are my fault that people executed on, and I just wish like those were a little bit better. But they're not massive things; they're just small little mistakes that obviously can do better. But I think there's little things across the board. Yeah, I'd say that the Rising series is probably the big one. And I think overall, though, it's gone pretty well. I feel like we've really hit our goals. And I think me and the whole team have done really well with just what we have to work with. And I'm really happy with how that's gone.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. Which I guess means that we've kind of now nicely covered this mid-season update on Calling All Heroes. I guess the big question here is, what's next for Calling All Heroes?
Yeah, so stay tuned to Overwatch Path to Pro socials on twitter.com. We're going to have some news coming soon, TM, just about what's next. We have Minor 2 and Minor 3 in our circuit coming up soon. So, yeah, right there. Oh my gosh, my eyesight's terrible.
It is a pretty small preview.
Yeah, September and October. We have Minor 2 and Minor 3. More details on who is hosting those and exactly when those will be announced soon, and I think it'll be pretty exciting. We have some cool partners that are really engaged in the program and really just believe in the mission, so I'm excited to be able to announce some more details about that, get people involved. I think that's really cool. I think just, you know, we got a lot of support, and I just want to say thanks to everyone. You know, what's next is we're just going to keep rocking it, and thanks everyone. It really means a lot, and I appreciate all the support and the opportunity from folks like you all just to be able to come on and just talk you're off for like an hour and a half about the program. It's
No,
awesome,
we
and I
love it.
appreciate it.
Yeah, we
Right,
love it.
I actually have two thank yous for you, right? Because I know you work not just on Calling All Heroes, but the Path to Pro, right? I have to say, the formats, tournament formats for Path to Pro and Calling All Heroes from 2023 in particular are really good, right? Really, really good. I guarantee you had some part of that just listening to you on the circuit talk. So thank you very much. They're very, very good, very cohesive, very fun as well to partake in
Awesome.
and help people compete in. And the other thing is, one of the interesting stories I wanted to kind of tell you from Calling All Heroes is one of our players, Team Peace, Sunshine Bread, really popular streamer, right? You wouldn't think, her as a streamer. She was telling me only a couple of days ago when we were kind of talking about what our goals were for the rest of the year. About she always had to like a little dream to kind of be really, really good at one thing, right? Like a professional, right? And she said wasn't really running, wasn't it, or whatever. And she's like, I really think I could do it in Overwatch. I really, really enjoy it, and I wouldn't have had that opportunity otherwise. And she feels like this kind of Calling All Heroes year is her chance to really, really improve. And you don't get those stories, you don't get those opportunities without programs like this, and I feel like it's a cool story to tell. So thank you so much to you, the Calling All Heroes team, and the Path to Pro team, for one, the format. The format's actually it's probably second, but to me most importantly, and the other thing of giving people spaces to play, because it's so lovely to hear those things, and also it's just a cool thing. So thank you so much from the entire Overwatch community.
Of course, I really appreciate it. And also, yeah, we love group stage. People love 2-stage tournaments, and they're awesome. So I'm really
The
excited
run
for
robin
that.
format in contenders is so fun. It's so fun.
I think it's awesome, and it's also it helps instead of a double or single limb, you really when teams are like, oh, I want to beat this team, you now know for certain. You
Get
can
to play them,
really
yeah.
go to the match oh, you lost or you won,
It's also boring financial talk here, because I obviously ran Incendia previously. One of the really difficult things, right, was kind of guaranteeing that you are going to play games, right, and get the social media coverage. So when you're playing 11 games, you've got 11 games that you could say to a sponsor, hey, look, social media coverage here for you on these 11 days, right? And it's set as those 11 days, right? Or those
100%.
11 times, right?
Yeah.
So it's so much easier. Whereas when it was double Limb or we were getting our butt kicked by Talon, right, it's a lot harder to do that.
Cool.
I was just enjoying letting Ocean dangle for a second there, honestly.
Fair enough. I still get images of that Colosseo where Top Dragon comes out and betrays me and gets 18 out of 24 final blows and just ruins my life. Sorry.
Sure, we're putting ruining your life on Top Dragon.
No, because he made me happy last weekend. He played really, really well in the Overwatch League. He did really well. So did Missing. Sorry.
It's
Well,
okay.
there you go.
Finish off the episode.
It wouldn't be an episode of Map 5 if we didn't give Ocean some chance to talk about Top Dragons. I'm glad we squeaked it in there.
Every episode.
At the end.
Yeah.
Bailey, it's always such a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for giving us this time, and for talking to us so in depth about how all this has been. What I did want to say, you keep saying, oh, it takes a village. I wish I could read out everyone I've got to thank. If you want to turn up with a list of people to thank, we will make space for you. We're quite happy to do that.
Oh, dude, I'm so scared of
call your
missing
list?
someone. Personally, I've always wanted to do that, but I'm just ugh. I got
And there's that
burned
one
once.
person you forget just accidentally, and
Yeah.
it looks so bad.
It ends up being like one of your
I've been
closest
there.
friends because you think you put them at the top of the list. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and ends up being one of the more important people, and you're like, shit. I think we should do it anyway and let that person be offended. Actually, don't. That's not
No.
smart. Oh no.
That's Ocean's humor. Don't take that seriously.
Well,
Yeah, don't.
on the general subject of thanks, Bailey, is there anything you'd like to shout at? Anyone you'd like to say hi to whilst you've got a little bit of a platform? Anything else you want to say that you've not had a chance to say?
Oh gosh, y'all put me on the spot. I just want to say thanks to y'all for letting me come out and talk about this stuff. It's super awesome, and thanks to the viewers for tuning in and supporting the program. Honestly, the fans and the players are number one, and that's really important to me. And it's just really cool that we have the support of the community, because not every esport has the support of the community, and that's something that I think some people might take for granted, but we get to, which is that's really cool. And that sounds bad, but the fact that we have the support of the community, people are supportive of this program, is really cool. I think that's something that not everyone is able to say across all the esports on this earth.
Well, we're not going to top that, so we're not going to try. Thank you again, Bailey, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll hopefully be back next week with more Map 5 podcasts. We'll find something to talk about, I'm sure. And hopefully we'll get to have Bailey on again, maybe at the end of this year's Call All the Heroes. We'll have a wrap-up episode. Until that time, everybody, take care, have a good week, and we'll see you again soon.